Welcome back to another episode of Kraken Takeaways, a sound of hockey joint. I'm Darren Brown.
And I'm John Barr.
This is one of those moments where I kind of wish video wasn't the medium that we're using because I'm pretty tired and I think you can blatantly see it on my face right now. We're recording this early on Sunday morning after a tough Kraken loss to the Colorado Avalanche in Game 3 at home. 6-4, and it's suddenly a 2-1 series after the Kraken and their fans were riding high after Game 1. I don't want to say things have gone sideways here, but the last two have not looked quite as good, though there were moments in last night's game. Let's dive into it. Our first topic here is the big guns showed up for Colorado, and I think that really was the story of the game. I'll let you go first on your thoughts on this one, John.
Well, it's McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, right? Those are the three big guns.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they all got on the score sheet as they scored goals and at times made the Kraken look silly, right? Like,
it really did.
even when they weren't scoring, there was a couple Makar moves and McKinnon moves where you're like, ah.
And I had the exact
scary.
same reaction, exact same reaction watching it. Like, oh. But, you know, Makar, the thing that concerns me about Makar is that, remember, he's coming off of an injury, right? That kept him out for the last couple of weeks of the regular season. And in games 1 and 2, I didn't feel like we saw those really confident, like, I'm the best defenseman in the world kind of moves. And he was making those left and right last night for some, you know, like just dancing along the blue lines. You know, that phrase that they use in basketball, where you put them on skates. It looked like that, where like their ankles like got wobbly, trying
broke
to
some ankles for sure.
And McKinnon, I mean, same thing. His breakaway goal, it was like, okay, it's a foot race between him and Adam Larson, and it was like, it's McKinnon, right? Not a chance. So, and then his goal was unbelievable. Made Ryan Donato look like just a traffic cone, kind of bowled him over, but also spun off of him all in one motion. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I think in the first two games, even though they lost in Game 2, there only was 1 point from that trio of players. It was an assist to Makar. In the first game, it was the one goal by Rantanen. So the Kraken had done a decent job of keeping them at bay, or at least minimizing the damage, as we've said many times.
Right.
But in this Game 3, they came up big. 5 goals combined between the three. Last night's game, the second period, I do have to say there was a real high point in the history of Seattle Kraken hockey there in the second period of that game. Man, that was fun, with 2 really quick back-to-back goals by the Kraken to take it from a 3-1 deficit to a 3-3 tie.
Yeah, and in the atmosphere last night, if it wasn't clear, if you haven't, or you didn't watch on TV, or you weren't in the game, it was insane. Like we predicted, probably the loudest it's probably been all season or in franchise history. And then that second period, when Matty scored that second goal, like within 10 seconds or whatever, the roof was ready to blow off. It was awesome.
Nuts.
It was awesome.
It was so loud. I do think it was the loudest I've ever heard the building in two years. And I've been to almost every game at the building. I don't think I've heard it louder than that. Maybe the Vince Dunn first goal at the first ever game last year could have compared with it, but it was really, really loud, super fun in there. The atmosphere was great at the beginning too. They had a new pregame show that I thought got the people pretty amped. But after it got to 3-1 in that second period, Makar had his heat-seeking missile that he launched off the faceoff. I felt like the air got sucked out pretty badly. So then to see those 2 goals go in quick succession, it really brought the atmosphere back and to new heights from what we haven't seen before. Unfortunately, we went from second period thrills to third period spills, because in that third, and we talked about after last game, Colorado smelling blood in the water, right? When they got to the third period tied after being down 2, it felt to me like the script was flipping for this one, and that Seattle was going to do the same thing back to Colorado. That didn't happen. The Avalanche came out flying in the third, got goals early from Rantanen, and then another one from McKinnon, and that was the dagger. It put it away.
Well, and shots were coming hard were hard to come by for the Kraken.
Yeah.
And particularly in the third, there was a time where it seemed like, and you might know this off the top of your head, but like it seemed like 10 minutes without a shot on net. So
you think I have numbers floating around in this brain right now?
I don't know. I figured you looked it up. So
no, you know that the image of like the monkey playing the cymbals, that's what's going on in my head right now. So
yeah, it is the day after. Yeah,
It
that's
is,
for sure.
yeah.
The morning after, I should say. Yeah.
I'm wiped, man. I am wiped out. But that's okay. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see the Kraken come out flying again in the third period. I thought they had really built some momentum in that second period. The crowd was obviously into it and loving what they were seeing. And then they came out in the third and it was just kind of a fizzle, which was unfortunate. One piece of the fizzling is the power play. Now, again, we talked about this last episode that both sides are struggling on the power play. Again, the only special teams goal came as a shorthanded goal for the Avalanche last night. So now each team in the series has a shorthanded goal. Nobody has a power play goal. What do you think is the deal there, John?
Well, technically, we did get a power play goal with 40 seconds left in the game.
Oh, I didn't know that was a power play goal. That's pretty funny. I was actually walking down to the media room. I knew they changed things up last night on how they were going to do things because of the playoffs. So I was a little nervous that I was going to miss something. So when it got to 6-3, I actually hustled down. So I heard the goal happen. I didn't realize it was a power play goal. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the same, it's kind of a fluky, last 40 seconds.
A charity goal. Is like
yeah, exactly. Didn't mean much. It's nice to put it in, right? Because McKinnon cross-checked somebody, and I like to see them pay for that. I mean, they didn't pay much, but it was nice to see. It's the same thing we've been seeing, the first two games. Just not getting much opportunity. Maybe there was some moments, but even kind of getting into the zone entries have been really hard to come by for the Kraken. And it seems like the slingshot or the double slingshot that a lot of teams do with kind of you back up the penalty kill team onto their blue line and then
neutral
slingshot
zone.
It into the neutral zone, and then you bring there's a trailing defender or really a puck handler coming in with speed and tries to break through. Colorado seemed to counter that with not putting all four players on the blue line, and then the Kraken could not push it back or do the slingshot or drop pass to somebody coming in, and that seemed to really disrupt things in the neutral zone, and so then everything else gets kind of screwed up. So that's kind of what I read. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. They looked confused. There was actually a moment where the Kraken did like a dump and chase into their own zone because they got to like the red line and they had nowhere to go. And I forget who the player was, but he was like, you know what, we're going to start over. And he dumped it back behind Phil Krubar, which I don't think I've seen them do all season long, but they looked downright confused coming through the neutral zone last night. You're absolutely right about that. I don't know that the PK in the zone, when they do get set up, Colorado's PK is super aggressive, especially when McCann gets the puck. They're on him in a flash, and I think that's working. For whatever reason, it's really disrupting them. They haven't figured out a way to work the puck down low yet, which I think is the secret. I mean, if they can overload lower in the zone, it feels like that would solve it, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a power play specialist by any means. So, as you know, I'm a goaltender.
You got to figure there's something you got to figure there's something they can do to counter it. And I just don't know if they have time to make the adjustment. It's one thing if a power play is not working, kind of middle of the season, you have some practices, you do some games, and eventually you turn that thing around. But, I mean, they got that token power play goal at the end, but really they haven't been able to do much. And that's unfortunate.
Power play is solved. Power play is solved.
Yeah. And just one other thing that we're seeing, and it's not on our show notes, but is the face-off goals. Colorado had another face-off goal. That was McCarr's goal, was right off the face-off. And that's the third one of the series in the last two games. And so it's something to kind of keep an eye on as well. I think we talked about it last takeaways, but it's something I'm just digging into, trying to understand what's going on there too.
Yeah. Piece of the power play is Vince Dunn. And I'm not trying to, throw blame at him by any means, but I don't think he's had a very strong series so far through 3 games. I saw people calling it out in games 1 and 2, and maybe this is why I noticed it last night, because it kind of brought my attention to him a little bit. I hadn't been, looking out for mistakes from Vince Dunn or anything like that in games 1 and 2. Last night, there were some glaring ones, though. He did get indirectly called out on the McKinnon goal. Dave Haxtell said, it was a 4-on-4, and we decided to dive in at the blue line with 29 on the ice. And the guy, I went back and watched it, the guy that did decide to dive in at the blue line was Vince Dunn. And he totally put himself in no man's land. And that's what sent McKinnon off to the races. He lost a race for the puck. And then McKinnon's got a free lane to go in on a breakaway against Philip Grubauer. But aside from that, he had 2 really bad turnovers in the third period, like almost in quick succession, too. They were just hot pizza pies from down below the goal line, almost like he was passing it to the wrong team. So I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully he'll turn that around. He's such a good defenseman and such a key part of this team. So I would like to see him just pick it up a little bit. I think I'm sure he's trying, but he's had some uncharacteristic mistakes, I think, in this series. And again, maybe because it got called out to me in games 1 and 2, I was looking for it last night. But I don't know. I don't know what the deal is there. Hopefully he turns it around. Anything to add?
No, other than, he's part of the power play and he hasn't been able to deliver too, right? I'm not trying to pile on. I just think the level of competition stepped up and he's used to kind of a little bit more
time. And that could be the aggressive piece too, right? They could be getting on him in the same way that they're getting on Jared McCann up at the top of the zone. So anyway, last thing we want to talk about, we discussed the atmosphere last night. A piece of that was tribute to our good pal Andy. So the Kraken actually did a really nice thing. They did a video on the screen. They actually dedicated the game to him. They saved his spot in the press box for him, left some flowers and his driver's cap, which was really unbelievable to see. They had all the fans turn on their lights on their cell phones just to kind of add some ambiance. So it was a really cool moment. Definitely gave me chills, brought some tears to my eyes. I could definitely feel his presence last night. Another one of those little anecdotes, John, I know we talked about this on our podcast where I kind of have like felt him being around every now and then. I had one of those big time last night in the second period when it got really loud in the building. And it was one of those goosebump moments, right? And it took me back. I don't know if you remember me talking about this, but game 1 preseason in Spokane last year when it got super loud. And I was sitting next to Andy for that game. It got super loud with a "Let's Go Kraken" chant. We both got goosebumps on our arms, and he leaned over to me and said, "Wow, I have goosebumps." And I was like, "Yeah, me too." And it was like this crazy moment. And I felt that last night. And I said to the person next to me, "Wow, I have goosebumps." And it was just like, I had this really intense, like deja vu feeling where I felt like Andy was there sitting next to me. So it was a cool moment. I certainly felt his presence in the building last night. And I'm really, really appreciative to the Kraken for doing that very nice tribute to him. That was, that was beautiful.
Walking around the arena, more than a couple of people came up to me and gave me hugs, right? And including Lamont, who
probably put it together. Right?
We actually always hug each other. Yeah, exactly. And for people that don't know, he lived in the same apartment floor as Andy, and so he has a personal connection to him as well. Very nice for the Kraken to do that in their biggest moment of their franchise history. And I also want to call out Bob Condor's article on NHL.com. Great tribute to Andy, who it's nice to see Bob had the same experience as we did when we were in press scenarios with him. So anyway, check that out if you haven't. But thanks again to the Kraken. Unbelievable.
Yeah, Bob and I shared a nice hug last night too. So, and we don't always hug. That would be our first hug. So, Andy would appreciate that I have my customary Crap Weasels shirt on today. So that's if you know, you know, for the OG podcast listeners. All right, that's all we have for this episode of Sound of Hockey's Kraken Takeaways. I forgot the name of the show for a moment. Sound of Hockey's Kraken Takeaways. Subscribe and leave your comments, and we'll talk to you all in a couple of days for the next episode. Thanks so much for watching.